Good afternoon. My name is Carl Brooks. I run partnerships at ProSpend. One of those partnerships I look after is with the ATO. I am joined today by Samantha Coloe, Assistant Director for eInvoicing at the ATO, who will provide an overview of what eInvoicing is, how it works, and how it can benefit you. I'll let Samantha explain why the ATO have been chosen by the Australian government to be the PEPL authority and their involvement in driving this initiative to help Australian businesses become better by creating efficiencies through the adoption of digital technologies. For those who have not picked up on my accent, I am originally from England, one of the 37 member countries who have also adopted the Open PEPL network, and each country has their own PEPL authority. In England, the chosen PEPL authority is the National Health Service, the NHS, so as you can see, being a PEPL authority has no relationship to tax. At the end of this session, there will be some time for brief questions and answers, so please ask any questions via the chat. And before I hand over to Samantha, please allow me to deliver an acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge that I am hosting this webinar from the lands of Bidjigal. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all work today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people participating in this webinar. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging and celebrate the diversity of the Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the land and waters of New South Wales. Now, I'd like to hand over to Samantha.
Thank you for that introduction, Carl. We'll go through some slides today. So I'm going to just talk to you today about e-invoicing, what it is, why the ATO is here talking to you about it, what benefits it can deliver to you for your business and for the Australian economy. Talk about the journey so far, give a market update and what the next steps would be for your business and the things to consider if you're going to implement. So what is e-invoicing? We'll talk about what e-invoicing is not. We're not talking about paper or emailed invoices, scanned OCR or PDF invoices. And it's not a system that processes or pays your invoices. So with e-invoicing, you continue to be in control of your accounts. E-invoicing is the digital exchange of standardized information between a supplier and a buyer's software through a secure network, which is the PEPL network. We're talking about B2B and B2G, so business to business and business to government transactions. As you can see at the top here on the slide, at the moment, when you send an invoice, you might be creating the invoice, creating a PDF, attaching it to an email and sending it. The receiving side, they receive the email, they may need to scan the data or rekey and send it into their various business management software. With e-invoicing, you create an invoice, an e-invoice, you send via the secure PEPL network and it's received by the buyer. So how does e-invoicing actually work? I want you to think of this a bit like a mobile phone network. I'm a network customer using a particular type of telephone or mobile phone. I'm calling a friend who uses a different type of mobile phone who's on a different network. So corner one is the supplier's natural business systems. Corner two is the supplier's access point. Corner three is the buyer's access point, and corner four is the buyer's natural business systems. So corner one is the supplier's natural business systems. Corner two, being the supplier's access point, does the translations and sends the information across to corner three. Corner three, the buyer's access point, then translates that information and sends it into the natural business systems of the buyer, corner four. The access point is what connects you to the PEPL network and allows you to exchange invoices and other documents with your registered trading partners. I want to make a point there that today we're going to speak about invoicing, but PEPL e-invoicing actually has a full P2P suite of document types, shipping notices, various other that are available and are the future. At the moment, we are looking at invoicing. It's the way to understand it, and it is the way to get the network up and running. So the role of the ATO in all of this is around the network. So the Australian government was considering e-invoicing and examining what was happening internationally. And the government is always on the lookout for technology that can provide efficiency gains for Australian businesses to make them more globally competitive and secure their position into the future. Some governments overseas were pushing e-invoicing to resolve the business problem for them, which was compliance. In Australia, we're quite lucky and we have quite good GST compliance, so we didn't have that business issue. The problems that we were looking to resolve through e-invoicing were quite different. So on deciding to proceed, the government needed, as Carl has pointed out, an Australian PEPL authority. The ATO had existing capability following successful rollouts of other large-scale IT project work. We also were well placed to understand the challenges and workings of the different stakeholders around the network that would be required. So the businesses, we have software providers, of course, through other taxation programs that we already have existing connections with. And again, understanding of the challenges of government as well. So we were well placed, and that's why we were selected to be the administrators of the Australian PEPL authority. Our role is around defining the Australian requirements for use of the PEPL standards, for example, the invoice specifications, administering accreditation of access points for Australia. We do due diligence checks. We make sure that those people entering, sorry, I shouldn't say people, those software providers that are and access points that are entering the system are legitimate. We do education and promotion, support the adoption. And we work with the digital service providers and business community to ensure that the framework is actually suitable and implemented consistently. So when you think of the ATO in this respect, our role here is around making sure that the network is robust. Apologies, we've gone to the wrong slide. All right, so why e-invoicing? The two main drivers for change are to create an open market to enable businesses, especially SMEs, to participate in digital trading and to reduce the accounts payable costs and inefficiencies associated with the manual accounts payable processes. When we look at the numbers, it's around about $30 to send an email or a PDF invoice manually. For e-invoicing, it's around $10. So the savings there speak for themselves. Late payments, using e-invoicing, generally there is less manual intervention, including human error, and therefore payments are quicker. On average, the Australian businesses are paid about 11 days late, so that can affect their ability to pay on time, and that has a roll-on effect. Australian small businesses are collectively owed about $26 billion in unpaid invoices at any given time. And finally, with the market imbalance, EDI networks impose restrictions on trading solutions. EDI is one-to-one, whereas e-invoicing is one-to-many. In addition, we look at the security around e-invoicing. So in 2022, there was $224 million lost in payment redirection scams for businesses. Only 5% of that was recoverable. So we often hear people say, well, I've got cyber insurance. However, often that cyber insurance won't cover a payment redirection scam because it is an action that has been taken by individuals within the business that have enabled the scam to take place. Therefore, they're not covered. We also hear people say, why haven't I heard about this if it's really happening so widely? It is a strain on the business, and it's generally calls into question the practices of the business and the viability of the business. So it's not something that a business wants to advertise if they've fallen victim to one of these scams. When you look at the numbers, generally, if you look around at your networks and the businesses that you trade with, one of them will have been impacted by a payment redirection scam. Again, you just won't hear about it. So why e-invoicing? As we said, the Australian government, they're doing this from an efficiencies perspective, not a taxation perspective. We see great gains in the accounts payable process. late payments for businesses. It will reduce those, and it will allow the market to open up. You can connect once and trade with many through the PEPL e-invoicing. Benefits to business and whole of economy. So in the words of one large business that has implemented, it's a no-brainer. Generally, at any given time, a business is trying to either save time or money, increase their security, open up trading, so to get better deals, or tick the box for sustainability, and it does all of those things. I'm going to provide an Australian market update on e-invoicing. So the numbers here are actually now out of date. So there are over 35,000 Australian registrants on the PEPL network. 80% are small businesses. Large businesses are adopting. We've got a few examples here like Bunnings, Woolworths and BOC Gas. The construction industry is representing the highest volume of users by industry at this stage, and SME represents the highest segment by business size. When we talk about a mandate, you might hear about mandate overseas. So again, overseas, many countries are looking at e-invoicing from a taxation perspective and to resolve that issue. So they have actually mandated e-invoicing. In Australia, we haven't done that. We're looking at this from an efficiencies perspective. The mandate that we do have here is on the federal agencies. So they've been mandated to be enabled. And there are a few things around that. One of those is that it provides faster payment times for them, for anyone that's trading with government, federal government. 200 plus state government agencies are enabled across South Australia and New South Wales. 10 local councils enabled, more than 10. That doesn't sound like a large number, but when you look at funding and the placement of local councils for innovation, that's actually quite significant and is continuing to grow. There is no mandate on business-to-business invoices again. And the same with government. You don't have to be using e-invoicing. However, you will see in the federal government some tenders coming out now that will preference e-invoicing. So what else is happening in Australia? There is a focus on the construction and on the recruitment sectors. The reason for recruitment is that the Australian